Great, welcome to my buyer seminar. I'm going to lead you through my PowerPoint presentation here very soon. I'm also going to be recording this on Facebook Live so people know that I'm active and ready to do some buyer seminars. So a little bit about myself. I've been practicing real estate over 7 years now. I'm able to establish myself as one of the top producers in the industry here in the Bay Area. I really enjoy doing it because I enjoy talking to people and staying in contact with everyone around me, also giving back to the community. I throw a surf contest once a year, and that's a really good way for me to be a part of something that I grew up in. I throw it at the Half Moon Bay Jetty, and it's always really fun to have the rest of the community show up and be there for us. Let's see. I always forget how to go live on Facebook. Oh, here it is. Wait. Facebook is so incredibly diverse now. Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, my Facebook Live, I look so much older. Huh. Very gray indeed. It's good for my real estate career. That's what I always say. When I'm white, I'll have a huge team built under me and working hard. So I digress. I'm going to share my screen here. Desktop share. I'm going to go to my PowerPoint slide. And here we go, on our way. It's a little intro.
Thanks for being here. This is Chris Loeswick. Today I'm going to give you a few tips on buying your first home.
This is me as more of a younger man.
It's basically two things. It's going to be a pre-approval letter and the down payment.
Anytime we buy a house, we got to present a pre-approval letter, which I'll go into more in my presentation, but it's basically the bank letting you know what your budget is for buying a house. You'll also be providing the proof of funds, which is your down payment, and it's basically a snapshot of your bank account with the bank account number obviously blocked out.
Buying a house. So with the pre-approval letter, you find the lender of your choice. You want to find someone you connect with. Someone who's not just going to answer an email, but is actually going to answer his phone. At that point, you need documentation. W-2s, paychecks, what you brought in annually for 2 years. A pre-approval letter.
And that's sometimes the hardest part for people is working with the lender and getting the documentation. But once you provide it one time, that's the only time you're going to have to do it. Then you've done all the hard work, so you can provide it to any lender to get an excellent rate. I had clients lock in a rate for 2.05 recently for a conventional loan, and that was the lowest I've ever heard. So I'm recommending everyone to First Republic Bank because best rate I've ever heard.
Basically sets your budget for what kind of housing you can shop for. Once you have the pre-approval letter, you can pull the trigger and buy the house that you would like because the budget is set, the funds are ready, and you have a real offer to a real seller. Before you can make an offer on a house, you also have to signify what your down payment is going to be. And your down payment is really important because it shows how strong your offer is going to be. The strongest offers out there are old cash offers. You can start with 3.5%, do an FHA loan, but these are the bottom of the barrel loans. When people are looking at that are actually selling the property, that's the last offer they're going to take. As you grow up the scale, 10% down would be your next option. With 10% down, you have to pay PMI, which is mortgage insurance, until you reach that 20% mark, and then PMI is removed. 20% is where you want to be at as far as the down payment goes because you don't have to pay mortgage insurance at that point. If you go any higher than 20%, well, your mortgage payment's just going to be a lot lower and a lot easier.
That's it. I just want to jumpstart it with a little bit of video that I created when I was a younger man. Here I am, a little bit more gray, and a little bit more knowledgeable in the industry. Right now, we're in a seller's market. I don't know if you can see that. It's probably not flipped. I should probably mirror it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right now, we're in a seller's market. I'm just going to go back to video. And that means that listings are going for over asking price. If we were in a buyer's market, the buyers would have all the power and listings would be going for under asking price. When I'm working with a buyer, we tend to look for listings that have been sitting on the market for a while so that we can flip the market on its head and go in at a buyer's market. So recently, a listing that was listed at $995, we got for $960 because it had been sitting for a while. It was a little uncared for. It was very old. It literally had wallpaper from the 1970s in it still, and the carpet, which was pretty nostalgic. Although I wasn't born in the 70s, I know what it looked like. So we took that out, and the house looks amazing now. They're working on the renovations as we speak. They're putting probably just about 25 grand into it. And to buy a home in the Bay Area right now for $960K is phenomenal. And I'll take you to my next statistic, which is the average for condos right now. What happened there? Is 972,000. So the fact that we got a single family residence for 960K in the Bay Area is phenomenal. Whereas the average for single family residences is 1.69 million. We live in an incredibly wealthy demographic of California here in the Bay Area. So I kind of want to walk you through what's going on with this graph. This is incredibly important as to know. So I got to get rid of all these people. Got too many people watching here. Got to wave them off, I guess. Can't see what I'm shooting anymore. Like Gabe Pullum's on there. All right, Will Ruddock. Nico Santiago, he bought. Okay, so here we have statistics showing when is best time to sell. February, statistically, going into March is the best time to sell because you can get 108% above your asking price. So you get asking price plus 8% over asking price in February and March. So spring is actually starting in February now and rolling right through March, April, and May. As it goes down, this was the Corona curve. A lot of people reduced the inventory in April and May due to coronavirus because no one knew exactly what was going to happen. And now we're seeing a resurgence going in of inventory in July and August right now. This is from 2019, but if we could show 2020, there'd be an incredible amount of inventory right now on the market because everyone held it back during coronavirus hit during the springtime. So because of that, though, the lack of inventory in the springtime created huge demand. So properties were still selling for an exorbitant amount of money during this springtime, even though coronavirus hit. The best time to buy, obviously, is this one during January because people are getting for properties for asking price at 100% of asking price or just 101%. That looks more like 100.5%. So as a buyer, you look at this graph and this is where you want to be. You want to be buying in January and December, and maybe this is the coronavirus curve where it went completely down. But I would almost say January, December, these are good times to be a buyer. Even as you see here in September, we dropped down to pretty low as well. Great. How to get pre-approved. This is one of the hardest steps to get buyers pre-approved because this sets the budget for how much they can actually buy a house for. The step one is to contact a professional. Contact Wells Fargo or Chase Bank or what's that other one? Guaranteed Rate with Mike Hoyt. So I have a plethora of lenders I work with and can always recommend you to. Let's see if I'm getting this right. Perfect. So then you just provide your documentation like we talked about earlier, your W-2s, your tax returns, your bank statements. They take all that, they process it, they get your credit report. Credit, very important in this whole home buying process. And then they put it in the matrix of this robot. He spits out a pre-approval letter. Then you go shopping with me. There is another thing called a pre-qualification letter. And as you can see, you only have to do one thing. You have to, will the lender give me an estimate? So it's basically just an estimate. Your lender based on your earning over the last couple of years. So typically you want to be working at a job for 2 or more years in order to get a solid pre-approval. But with a pre-qualification letter, that's the first step. It's basically a lender just cursory glancing over your finances and saying, oh, you're qualified for 1.2. But a pre-approval letter means that you filled out a mortgage application, you did a credit check, the lender reviewed your finances, they have an estimate on your down payment based on your savings, and they give you a specific amount on the loan amount they'll give you based on your down payment and what kind of rate you're going to get. I locked in a 3.625 for my house, and I thought that was pretty good. A lot of my clients have done 3.25, awesome as well. But my current clients that we just got a house in San Bruno for $960K got 2.05. But they're both in finance and they're working with their lender at First Republic. And I think you have to have like 100,000 in the bank to get that specific loan with them. But I think it's worth it if you can get 2.05 because that is the lowest I've ever heard. Great. The mortgage loan process. So here, let's see. Are you still seeing this? Oh, yeah. This is once we actually get into contract on a home. We've done all the hard work, the pre-approval, we've looked at 5 or 10 houses, and you found the perfect one. You write the offer, it gets ratified. Then your lender, during the escrow process, does document verification. Then he does a credit report again. Then we do a home appraisal. And that's one of the biggest contingencies in the whole escrow process. Is the home going to appraise or not? Because if it underappraises, the buyer ends up coming out with that money out of pocket. So if it underappraises 25 G's, well, you got to come up with 25,000 cash out of pocket. That's why it's important to know that your offer you're putting in is going to appraise at that level. And if you do it right, your appraisal is actually going to come up above what you're paying for the house, and you'll have instant equity. So once it appraises, right on the money, typically 99% of the time it appraises right on the money. You write at 1.2, it appraises at 1.2. The appraisers are pretty good like that. Then, and this is all going on the lending side, the appraisal comes back. Everyone's like, this is a great house. It appraised right on the money. It goes to the underwriter for review. Now, this is a really serious step in the whole buying process. As it goes to the underwriter, I'm calling the lender saying, hey, you hear back from the underwriter yet? Are we good? Is it 100%? Is the loan locked in? Is the rate locked in? And they're like, oh, yeah, let me put an emergency rush on it. Yeah, the underwriting department's really backed up right now. And then finally they go, okay, the underwriter gave the approval. The rate's locked in. So you got your 3.25 or 2.005. Then at the close of escrow, the loan funds. And that's when the sellers get paid. So that's a really happy day. And that's when you get the house. The first month of mortgage, you always get free, which is something that we never talk about in the real estate industry, and unless you buy a house and then your bank tells you, oh, good news, the first month is free. Then for the rest of your 30 years, you got to pay a monthly mortgage. So welcome to the real world. So last year I closed on 13 properties. On average, 1.45 offers to get one accepted. Working with buyers is what my average is. I always tell buyers, information is power. When you're working with me, I'll get you a paragraph on what is going on with the house, where other agents will just give you a sentence. And what I mean by that is I know the listing agent. I find out where the sellers are moving to. I find out what we can write for an offer to make it as attractive as possible so that the sellers accept it. This is just some testimony one of my clients wrote. Oh, not that one. It's been a blessing working with you and meeting you, Chris. Thanks so much for everything. Please keep in touch. Let's go. I want to take you and your family out to lunch when coronavirus is done. So it's really good to hear like positive feedback from my buyers. And every experience is different, and all of them are positive. And a lot of times I meet really great people buying a house, and we end up having a friendship and, you know, barbecuing together. So it's one of the upsides to being in this industry. So the fun part of the whole home buying process is actually shopping for a house once you're pre-approved, because then if you get your heart set on a house, you can actually put an offer in and buy it. The average buyer looks at about 5 homes. I typically tell them the first house that you look at is most likely the one you're going to buy, because I've heard enough of your criteria and picked apart the market and tried to put the perfect one that's in your budget in front of you. And I'm not a high pressure salesman. I'm just a consultant. So what I'm trying to do is put the best house possible in front of you so you can make the educated decision on whether or not you want to buy it or not. So feedback is paramount. You know, I won't get offended if you tell me what you don't like about the house. I didn't decorate it. So please, a lot of times I learn more from your dislikes than your likes. So don't hold back. Here's another testimony. Thank you so much, Chris. Truly a pleasure working with you. Those little texts, man, make me feel so good. Some people say this is a thankless job. I get so many thanks from my clients all the time. This is not a thankless job. So as we get in contract, once we find you a house, the earnest money deposit goes in. This is known as the EMD. It's 3% of what you bought the house for. Goes into escrow, and you can write it as a cashier's check. You can bring a suitcase of cash. You can write a personal check. You can wire it in. However you get it in there, it needs to be in escrow in 3 days, or else the listing agent is going to write us a notice to perform, and we have to do it in 48 hours, or else we get kicked out of contract. So this is very important. It shows intent to buy. It shows that you're a serious buyer. So the quicker it gets in, the more relieved the listing agent is. Next is a property inspection contingency. So sometimes buyers will go in and the reports that are provided on the house aren't that great. So they want to know exactly what they're buying in case like the foundation's messed up or who knows. So we hire a third-party inspector that we hire, inspect out the house, and then we remove the contingency once we feel comfortable enough with the house to remove that contingency. Because contingencies are in there so that if it doesn't line up and the house has a falling down foundation that's going to cost like $200,000, if we don't remove that contingency within the 10 days or whatever we put out for that contingency, we can still get out of contract, no harm, no fail. But as soon as we remove all the contingencies, the property inspection contingency, the loan contingency, the appraisal contingency, then we have to buy the house no matter what, or else we lose our 3% deposit. So that's the importance and significance of contingencies. The appraisal contingency. I glazed over this earlier that this is very important. So you pay for this, your lender orders it. I think it's usually about $1,200. The appraiser goes in, he says, you purchased this house for $1.2 million per se. And then the appraisal comes in at $1,175,000. So that's under it underappraises, you have to come up with $25,000 cash out of your pocket. So heaven forbid, this only happens like 1% of the time. 99% of the time, it comes in at asking price or whatever you're going to pay. So it comes in at 1.2. And if it overappraises, say it's going to appraise for 1.225, well, that's just instant equity in your home. So that's the best case scenario. And then the most average scenario is it comes in appraisal at your current price that you're putting in. And then the worst case scenario is that the appraisal comes in under, and then you got to come up with cash out of pocket. So it's kind of almost like a check and balance of the market so that people aren't way overpaying for properties that underappraise, and then because they have to come up with that cash out of pocket. So it kind of keeps the market in check per se. And that's the way I look at it. And when we're writing offers, we're always questioning whether or not it's going to appraise for that much because of that downside. If it underappraises, you have to come up with that cash out of pocket. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is one of the things I like preparing my buyers for. And it's one of those things that's not that like intuitive, and you only learn through practice in this industry and learning these things as we go along. So you're almost at the finish line. Once you remove the appraisal contingency, now you're at the loan contingency. And this is where I'm going to be on the phone with your lender, calling them and saying, can we remove the loan contingency? It's been 17 days. We've been in contract. We're in escrow. Can we remove the loan contingency? Oh, no. My buyer still needs to get a few more documents and and we're putting a rush on it. Okay, we'll write an extension, but just for 3 more days. Then we got to remove this loan contingency. And then I call him 3 days later, and he's like, okay, everything's fine with the loan. We're underwritten. We're ready to go. And I, send in the documentation. We remove the loan contingency. That's the last contingency when we go into contract typically. But once that's removed, the listing agent can rest assured that the property is 99% chance going to sell and close at the date of close of escrow. Also, if you get cold feet at that point, you're kind of screwed because you already put 3% deposit on the house, and you're going to lose that with no contingencies. But, everything's negotiable in real estate, so I've never had that happen before. I've only seen that once in my career, and it wasn't with the property I was selling, and it was there were some serious significant issues going on behind the scenes with I can't even explain it. It was so odd. So here we are, sold. The house is yours. Close of escrow typically takes about 30 days. And at that 30-day mark, I hand over the keys. We sign the papers, and the house is yours. So, that's kind of my seller presentation. For all questions, just go to Loeswick.com. This property we just sold in Pacifica, beautiful ocean views. So I have a few more properties coming in Pacifica. So if that's somewhere you want to end up, please let me know. I like getting my clients into off-market properties because off-market have little to no competition. And right now, being a seller's market, it's great to have properties that are off-market because then you don't have to battle out over price, pay over asking, etc. So, I'd really like to hear from other people out there what you got from my buyer presentation, who I can help next, because oftentimes people who are buying homes know about 4 or 5 other people that are going to buy homes in the future, especially if they're pregnant. Let's be honest. It's like pregnancy is God's gift to real estate. I don't know how many homes I've sold to pregnant or they're just born, and you got to put a roof over these kids' heads. Same with me. That's what happened with my single family residence. That's how I acquired it. Had to get out of the condo and move into a single family residence in a neighborhood that was good for kids here in Clipper Ridge, El Granada. It's always been my dream to live here anyway. So it was like 2 birds with 1 stone. Anyways, I'm just rambling on here, but please let me know if you have any buyers that I can help out, or anyone who's selling also, because I have about 3 listings right now, and real estate is so hot right now. I mean, the market is blowing up. But come September, we're going to see a substantial drop probably in prices and inventory, and that's a good time to become a buyer. So I like working with both sides of the equation because throughout the month, as you can see from statistics, there's a good time to be a buyer and there's a good time to be a seller. So I thank you. Thanks for all watching, and I'm out. Well, I hope you got a lot out of that. I know it's fun for me walking through that. It's like a stroll down memory lane every time we talk about this buying process. It's something I've helped so many people with in the past and has made a profound effect on their lives. So I appreciate you, and I hope to do this next month, last Saturday of every month. And I am going to stop recording.